Good afternoon, good morning, good day, wherever you happen to be in the world. We are so glad that you joined us for Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food in November. This is the fastest 15 minutes in food. It's the month of Thanksgiving. And of course, Thanksgiving and the holiday season means we're done with healthy eating. We're going to indulge and be thankful for many things. And one of those is our opportunity to spend time with you, David. I'm Charlie Arnott with the Center for Food Integrity. Again, thank you for joining us. We've got some exciting things coming up. Thanks to those of you who attended or participated in our summit. We had a great opportunity to do a little more workshopping on how you begin to implement transparency in an organization. And we have some fantastic research that'll be coming out in January on consumer expectations for transparency and also the evolution of truth. How do people think about what constitutes truth for them in today's world? So again, our purpose at the Center for Food Integrity is to build consumer trust. We tap into this phenomenal network of experts, and one of our experts for a long time, and one of our favorite experts always, is David Hughes. So we are thrilled that you are able to join us. While David is based in Wales, he's had a whale of a schedule the last few weeks. He travels the globe speaking to the food industry, just finished a bruising 4-week tour, giving 8 talks across 3 continents in 6 countries, and he is still upright. So that's a fairly impressive accomplishment. So congratulations and condolences both for that travel schedule, David.
Thank you, Charlie.
We are so thrilled you're home safely, but glad Spain wasn't on your travel list. They have seen an enormous amount of flooding, causing significant damage and distress. So what does that have to do with food? What are we seeing there in terms of the impact of food?
Right. Well, it was tragic, and they were flash floods they've never seen before. 200 plus people have died, and more will, and we're still counting, frankly. Extraordinary flooding, particularly in the Valencian region, so around Valencia, which is a major producer of fruit and vegetables, which supplies Spain's domestic market and, of course, Northern Europeans' winter markets. We get lots of fruit and veg from there. It's, for example, the region produces 60% of Spain's oranges, and Spain is the largest exporter of fresh oranges. It's a complete mess down there, and it's not going to get better in a hurry. Fingers crossed on the supply of it.
So one of the things that intrigued me about that story and your comment on it, David, is it feels, from my perspective, from what I see and hear and read, that specific countries in Europe are more comfortable offshoring food production to maintain a certain country lifestyle. How does that impact that perception of food security? And do you see any long-term impact on policy as it relates to saying we actually need to bring more food production back into our borders?
Spot on, Charlie. It's being questioned right now. And in fact, for the past 12 months or so, as a result of the pandemic, where we saw empty shelves. And so governments are saying, yes, we should produce more at home. But if you take the UK, for example, if we take fruit, then we import close to 90% of the fruit that we consume. Now, can we grow more? Yes, we can, and the glass and the plastic, but it's relatively high cost. And so it's a big ask, but governments are saying we need to look at it and look at it big time.
Wow. Okay, so we're gonna turn the page on that and kind of go on to a little bit of politics, continuing that thread. So we are 2 days post-election here in the United States, with half the electorate celebrating and half the electorate mourning. So we're going to start with politics across the pond. So we're calling that you had an election in July, and new actions are underway. The right-wing Conservative Party was booted out. Labor Party is in power. What's the new government's emphasis, and how does that impact food?
Right, Charlie. We're going in the opposite direction to you as far as I can see in terms of the basic politics. But the Labour Party, in their great statements, when they swept in, frankly, said we're going to focus on economic growth because that's what we need to get this country moving. Unfortunately, when they came in, they found, or said they found, a black hole in their budgets, and they were $30 billion short. And so they said, first step is to fill that black hole. And we all go, oh, how do you do that? You either take it from consumers or you take it from business. And it seems that they're taking it from business. So they've upped taxes on businesses. That's a big blow to the food industry. Labor is a key example here. So, for example, there's a big increase in the amount that companies have to chip in for their part in employee insurance, national insurance, as we call it. And this impacts both big companies and small restaurants. Like my son has a small food service. I'll come back to that. And also, they've upped the national living wage, so the minimum wage, as you might call it. That brings it up to actually round about what it is in the US, which I think is $16 per hour. So what's the impact on the food industry? For the likes of Tesco, our Kroger lookalike, if you will, that's certainly over $100 million on their employee costs. But if I go back to Garth, my son, he's only got 35 employees, but it's going to cost him an extra $100,000 this coming year. And so can he recoup that? Well, if he puts his prices up, he can, but he's in the restaurant and cafe business. He's not sure that the customers are willing to pay more. So it's tough. Other taxes came in too on old favorites like tobacco. They always got a good hammering. And vapes, actually. I was intrigued to see that single-use vapes, which are the most popular of the vape products used by young consumers, have been banned entirely.
Interesting.
They've also upped taxes on high sugary drinks. As ever, taxes are up on alcohol, but there's a sort of brilliant little British wrinkle here to help struggling pubs, one of which is owned by my son. Then taxes are down on draft beer and cider. So they're saying if you go into the pub and you'll pay less, but if you go to the supermarket and buy beer in a bottle and take it, or in a can and take it home, we're going to charge you more. But most controversial, I'm sure you can relate to this, Charlie, is to do with the farm. Inheritance tax has been introduced on the family farm, when in the past farms had been exempt. And what does this all mean? It means when a farm couple retire and a son or daughter take over, then taxes are estimated on the capital gain the couple who are retiring have made on their farm through the period that they've been farming, which can be considerable. And farmers, to say they're enraged under Zezet, they're incandescent with rage. And they see it as being the death of the family farm. This will run politically because farmers are up, and next week, I think they're down to Westminster, down to the White House, so to speak, to scream their rage at the incoming Labour government. So no, not good for ag and food.
That's fascinating because farmers are often described as asset rich and cash poor. So yes. Clearly that's going to force liquidation and change in ownership and an upheaval in structure, which could obviously be
and just accelerate challenge. Consolidation too, Charlie. And I mean, there's pluses and minuses to that, but there we go. That's another one.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. You attended a food show. I love international food shows. You picked up one in France. Help me with the French pronunciation, David.
So it's SIAL, Salon International d'Alimentation. So essentially, It's International Food Hall.
Excellent. Well, obviously, that was a great expedition. And also, food shows are very popular with American food companies. What did you learn? What did you hear that was going on there?
Well, what everybody was talking about, and the survey that the SIAL has done backed this up, was that consumers are saying, we're all changing our food habits. We're going to pursue much healthier diets, support local farmers, reduce our environmental impact by choosing different diets. Yet, don't we all say that? And the survey makers were saying they refer to this phenomenon of the say-do gap. So we say something and then don't necessarily do what we say. This, I see this all the way around the world. An example being ultra-processed food, where people declare that this type of food is harmful, yet they still seek it out. And it's a reminder to me, and it was picked up in the international halls, in the food halls of Paris, that food is important in providing comfort during very difficult times. And we still are in difficult times. And you can see that in new product development, picking up this trend. Manufacturers are reinforcing the pleasure of eating food. In the past, they say, well, it's all about health, it's all about the environment. They're saying, no, don't forget, it's about real pleasure under difficult times. And also, NPD, new product development, has been heavily focused on protein. I know we all know this, but not meat protein. It's everything has got protein. Chickpeas are pervasive, for goodness sake. I was intrigued to see that mushrooms are identified as a protein source, and yet, as far as I know, they're very low in protein. What else did I see much of? The same as you'll see in the US, I think. Korean foods are hugely in vogue. And what's more, they're competing full on with Japanese food. So the sushis, the Japanese sushi has been pushed off the shelves by Korean lookalike sushis with an almost unpronounceable name. I won't even try it. No, it's always worthwhile going to CL. It's been running for 60 plus years now. It's every other year. It's a brilliant food show to go to.
I had some Korean sushi when I was in Brisbane recently, but it's interesting because there's always been this low correlation between stated purchasing behavior, I'm sorry, stated purchasing intent and actual purchasing behavior. So that's not new, but what is interesting is the pressure on manufacturers to change their the formulation, to change everything else, despite the fact that it may not be sold. Right. So that's the part where there's this increasing and very interesting tension between what people are going to buy, what they tell you they're going to buy, and then policy pressure to change formulation for a healthier, more environmentally sustainable production process.
Exactly, and actually, it's not in my notes for this month, actually. But the incoming Labour government are going to press the health button really hard. They understand we have this obesity crisis, and they've linked it to how much it costs the National Health Service, and they say that is not sustainable. One way or another, we have to change or attempt to nudge people towards healthier diets.
But yeah, we can talk about that next time. Maybe a little focus on GLP-1s and what the impact they're having across the food system. That would be interesting. Okay, last topic. Sweet one, we're talking about sugar and kind of what you've learned on a recent study, which I think is fascinating in terms of the long-term impact. So tell us what you observed and what the impact might be.
Right. No, I love this one, Charlie, because it sort of fitted in with my age group. I was sort of fascinated by a health study conducted, oddly enough, by scientists from the University of Southern California. But the study used data from the UK from 1951 to 1955. Now, so don't yawn, that's a long way away, but it focused on the health of 60,000 babies in the UK over this period. And why that period? Because you won't recall, many Americans won't recall, but we had food rationing, which was introduced in 1939 when the Second World War broke out, and it ran all the way through the Second World War and didn't finish until 1954. Wow. So I was 6. I remember food rationing. I used to play with the ration coupons with my sister. We played shop, if you will. And sure. So they've looked at that, so the data from babies born 51 to 55. And what did they see? That sugar was derationed in 1953. So the first 5 years of my life, I mentioned getting sweet things were very, very difficult. And actually, come 53, we derationed sugar, and immediately per capita consumption of sugar doubled. Yeah. So what? Well, the study found that limiting sugar intake while a baby was in the womb and during the first year to 18 months could reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 35% and also could substantially reduce high blood pressure later in life by at least 20% plus. And that's sort of unique data there, where they got babies that were just constrained in their sugar consumption, and then another group who were unconstrained. And so the experts say that the first 1,000 days of life are significant in shaping a person's future health, including, for example, the development of a sweet tooth. We hardly use that phrase any longer, but I can remember he's got a sweet, or she's got a sweet tooth. So it was extraordinary to have this data set to examine and learn from. And I think there's been a lot of medical interest right around the world about this. And it's this sort of, in the womb stuff that you've got to be, it's the mum-to-be's diet is hugely important, as well as the immediate diet of the baby after birth.
That's fascinating. You wouldn't think that prenatal sugar intake would have an impact, but clearly it does based on this.
Yes,
so
yes.
It'll be fascinating to see as we continue to look at the focus on added sugar and ultra-processed food to see how things play out. Any questions that we might have? I'm looking at the box, and I don't think I see any questions or comments or hands raised at this point. So if that's the case, what we will do is express our great appreciation for you for listening and joining us with Dr. Hughes on the fastest 15 minutes in food. And we will be back on December 5th for our last Dr. Food of 2024, connecting dots across the food chain and across the pond. We are very grateful to you for your listening and for your support of the Center for Food Integrity. David, actually very grateful to you so much for your participation, sharing your insight with us so graciously over the last several years, and we look forward to connecting with you again in December. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Always a great treat for me, Charlie. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye.